On Second Thought, episode 259, brought to you by Hook'em.com, our good friends at Bud Light. Said Golden here with the Duck Kirk Bowes, and wow, always a pleasure to chop it up with Longhorn royalty. Rob Babers, he's on weekdays with Mike Harge on Ball Don't Lie from 3 to 7 on 104.9 The Horn. Rod B, what's shaking?
Thanks, gentlemen, for having me on. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure. I'm excited. So, man, let's get right to it. I know we got a lot to talk about.
Let's hit the ground running. So
yeah, let's go.
big news on the 40. 6 assistant coaches get big raises. 2 of them up to $1 million per, cash and checks, which is like cash and checks.
Yeah, no doubt.
But the optics maybe not the best after a 5-7 year. What's your take on that, Rod B?
It is very bad optics. It is. I totally get that. But it was necessary because, Texas, it's easy to negatively recruit against Texas right now. All right. So negative recruiting is a real thing. But against Texas, because of the draft recently, no players in the draft, whether you're talking about the 5-7 season, losing at home to Kansas, there are a lot of things you can throw out there to a young man and go, hold up, you're thinking about Texas? You realize they lost to Kansas at home. You realize they went 5-7. You realize, you can throw out the monkey gate, all types of things, right? Wow. So because of that, you also can point out the possible job instability, if you will, of the coaching staff, because after 5-7, everybody assumes, Sark won't be there long, and neither will the coaching staff. He's already made some changes, going to make more changes. So it just gives you the perception, or at least a benefit from the perception that you have stability. That you're going to keep this coaching staff, and that, the 5-7 season happened, but that's not something that teams can use to negatively recruit against Texas because, hey, they already got contract extensions. They're here to stay. It's like, and everybody negatively recruits. Everybody negative recruiting. Everybody does it. It's something that it's like peeing in the shower. Everybody does it, but nobody wants to admit to it. So Texas does it too, but it's hard for Texas to combat that with the reality of, all the stuff that's happened on the field.
Well, all I know is the last coach to go 5-7 and lose to Kansas didn't get a raise, but
exactly. See, the jokes are too easy. The jokes right themselves.
Too damn easy. Charlie
They're too easy.
Man, I would have lost to Kansas a lot earlier.
Exactly.
Man, wait till the last season. I got to tell you, I was on Twitter. I wrote it. I was like, where's the motivation? You getting paid, sleeping on those silk sheets. I mean, Jeff Banks getting $1.5 million a year to coach special.
Hey, he deserved.
That's $500,000 less than Green Bay just paid Rich Bisaccia, and he's in the NFL.
Ooh.
And so Jeff Banks making NFL money now.
Yeah.
And he ain't got to win. So I understand the negative recruiting. I don't like the look. And, coming off the draft, and they didn't have anybody picked. And Wichita Baptist had somebody pick. Kennesaw State, Yale. All of those teams were
goes on
filling up their yearbooks with NFL draft picks, and the Longhorns came up there. Tell us about not that because you played in an era when first-round picks were falling out of the sky. Big Mike Williams.
And
Y and Sid.
Quinn Jammer. Yeah, it was all over the place.
All these guys were falling out of the sky. What does it do for those optics when the Texas Longhorns go a whole weekend in Vegas with no picks?
Unfortunately, it's not surprising. Right. I think that's the sad thing. Longhorn fans weren't surprised by it. And we've seen it happen, in 2014, I believe it was. Yeah. So, and by the way, we know now, look at LSU, right? I think LSU had 10 players drafted. Just because your program is dysfunctional and because you lost a lot of games doesn't necessarily mean you don't have, right? Yeah. NFL caliber athletes. So Texas has two problems. The one problem is they can't translate any of the resources they have to wins on the field, really, or at least an adequate number of wins on the field. But also, man, where's the NFL talent, right? And it should be an NFL rich program. I just put out the stat the other day, after the draft, I've been tracking the Houston and DFW areas. And in the last 3 years, the DFW, greater metroplex, and they've had 38 players drafted in that time span, which is more than every state except for 4 states. And I think it's California, Texas, Georgia, and
Florida.
Florida, I believe, is in that. Yes, Florida. I mean, those are the 3. And Greater Houston in that time span has had 33 players drafted in that time span, and if you look at, I believe, all but 5 states, you got to throw Louisiana in there with that additional 4. They've had more draft picks in all but 5 states. And those are right here. Those are the 2 kind of football heavy talent areas. Fertile recruiting grounds right here in Texas. And Texas should be you can't dominate that anymore because you're not. Mac Brown dominated like nobody's business. Nobody will ever dominate like that again. But you got to have your market share of that, right? You got to own 50 to 60% of H-Town just because it's Texas and DFW too. If you can do that, that's some of your NFL picks right there. Problem is they can't really say right now that they necessarily own or have a majority share of Dallas and the DFW area or Houston as well. And Louisiana, listen, I'll give Sark credit for this stuff. He's working hard, right? Georgia's become the new kind of fertile recruiting ground that popped up out of nowhere. You can track all these things kind of based on population booms and growth areas, right? That's why Texas, right? Fastest growing cities in the country. Look at Central Texas, now having some of those players. But Georgia is now, I think, is actually ahead of California in terms of producing NFL talent in the last 3 years. It's been unbelievable, man. You got to go check it out. It's fantastic. It's crazy to watch. Yeah. But that's a short choice hire. That's why it was so strategically a great move in recruiting as well, because you need a foothold there, right? You need somebody that can relate to the Georgia football, high school football coaches there. You need somebody with a name there that's recognizable. You have that into short choice. And then you can look at Louisiana, Brandon Harris, I believe, who is, I forgot his official title, but he's basically kind of the guy that sets your recruiting board, and he's your recruiting czar. He is, a guy that's got heavy ties in Louisiana, and Louisiana is a football mecca, a fertile recruiting ground. So Sark knows what he's doing. Sark sees it. He sees it. You don't have to tell him, but he's got to do a better job in Houston and DFW. Got to.
Yeah.
Hey, let's put it out there. This is not Sark's fault. He just got here. Yeah. He just got here. So, but from 2001 to 2009, Mac Brown's teams won at least 10 games a year. Mm-hmm. And Rod, you never had you had what, one year where you didn't win 10?
I had 2. I had 9 wins, I believe, my first 2 years, and I had 11 wins my last 2 years. I believe that's how I went. If I'm not mistaken.
So you want at least 10 games every year. A Natty in 05, or a Cotton Bowl in 02, 2 Rose Bowls, a Fiesta Bowl, and first round picks out the gazoo. Now, it's a direct correlation. I mean, this is not rocket science. It's not. I mean, the decline starts in 2010. Rod quits the sideline show.
Is that on the timeline now?
Somewhere in the timeline. It might make the column. And they lose to Alabama, and Mac Brown admittedly tells us, it took me 2 years to get over that. And it sure felt like it in 2010 when he went 5-7. And so they haven't had a double-digit winning regular season since the Alabama loss. Oh, nice. And so I guess, is that an indictment on Tom Herman? Because Tom Herman won games, and Tom Herman got guys drafted. So is it just a fundamental cultural slump for the University of Texas?
That's a great question. I think for Tom Herman, unfortunately, because he, like you said, he won games, all right, and if he would have had a more linear, right, trajectory and progression, I think it would have helped him. 2017, then having the big year in 2018, and then we're back. Don't forget, on the timeline, we're back. We're back. Put that on the timeline, because I think that summarized the mindset of we did it. the arrogance and the hubris of, I've accomplished it. I did what none of the other coaches could do. Tom Herman solved it. It's done. You're welcome, Texas. Took me 2 years. I don't know what the hell y'all were talking about. And we knew that, the culture at Texas had been very toxic. And there were a lot of issues that were, that were left by Mack Brown, and then issues left by Charlie Strong's regime. And those things just piled up and piled up. And I think for Sark, my concern is that we've had cultural issues here in Texas. We all know that, right? It's entitlement's been a big issue. I just remember Moro Ojimo. We just heard him talking about the me culture over the we culture in the locker room, right? So there are still some of those issues. He got silenced. It's like, hey. We only good stories, only good stories.
Right. Don't you know that Moro Ojimo has been kicking the crap out of those $50,000 offensive linemen, and he's just tired. I mean, how many times can he kick your butts and they're talking crap and they're going, "Yeah, I got 50 grand. What you got?" You know that's going on. I don't blame Moro.
I love me some Moro Ojimo. Now I love him even more. But the point that I was trying to make is that, those issues still exist because you can't solve those things in one off season and in 1 year. And obviously 5-7 losing to Kansas and maybe losing the locker room a little bit. That all, I think, is an example of the toxic culture that still exists. I think now with name, image, and likeness and the transfer portal now being added to the equation, I think it's tougher now to build a quality culture than ever before. I don't know if it's really tough to do it now. So it's a challenge for Sark. That's going to be a hell of a challenge, man, because now coach says something I don't like, I can hit the portal. Coach wants to bench me to bring out the best in me, to want me to compete more. I can hit the portal. Compensation. I got money. It's a lot. I'm glad the young men are getting it. The free market is the free market, and God bless it. I'm happy for it. But it's hard to build a culture when you throw a ton of money now into the scene and a ton of player freedom, and the coach doesn't have that ability to provide the structure he did before. Because these young men now, they got a lot of power. They got a lot of power. Coaches aren't accustomed to that.
They got opportunity, and
Yep.
it's on an individual basis, like you said, transfer portal, immediate eligibility, NIL. We see that, and it's hard to sell the whole collectivity, the cohesion. Can take a hit, and with Moro getting silenced, I don't know how the rest of the locker, feels that. It's like, oh, I better not speak the truth, or I'll be banished from talking to the media, which hurts their NIL. So I thought that was a mistake by Sark. I wanted to ask you, Rod, you mentioned the recruiting, and that's obviously the lifeblood. The other is development. You look at Texas A&M, had the killer #1 recruiting class, although there were 8 5-star or 15 5-star. It's like the best class since recruiting began.
It is.
They only had 4 players drafted, which I think surprised some people that, Jalen Watermeyer, ran a slow 40 time and didn't get drafted.
Very slow.
It's about development. Well, I want to ask you about the value of the SEC in recruiting. You think we're going to see that? And he had a good recruiting class. Are we seeing that already? And will Texas realize the benefits of being in the SEC before they get there and before they've even played or won a game in the SEC?
Yeah, that was, once again, something you could obviously negatively recruit against Texas. They don't play the best brand of football. They're in the Big 12. The Big 12 has the fewest players drafted year after year. I think this year they had more than the ACC or something like. No, actually, Pac-12. Was it ACC? It was one of them. They were fourth. I believe that they were fourth among the Power 5 conferences. They weren't last. But usually
fewer teams, though. Fewer teams.
And fewer teams. Good point.
And they have Kansas. So yeah.
We're knocking Kansas now.
There you go. There are all these things they throw out there. I think for Texas now, you just have to start thinking on your recruiting on a broader scale. Nobody will ever rule the Iron Throne of Texas like Mack Brown did. Those days are done. It's over. And that was a beautiful time when Texas got the best athletes in the state of Texas and everybody else got the leftovers. And Texas didn't really have a recruiting peer in the state at the time. That happened. That lasted for like 10 years with Mack Brown just calling the shots, taking the best athletes in Texas and saying every now and then he would lose a guy, but for the most part, he just got the best athletes in the state year after year. And as I just pointed out, the stats tell you that, those are going to be a bunch of NFL guys in that group. And Max sparingly, he would go, kind of piecemeal get guys from out of the state, your Bo Scapes and your Chris Sims, and he would try to build a class on that. I think for Sark, he's going to be recruiting outside the state a lot more, just because he understands he doesn't own the state like he used to. He can't brag about being the best football program in the state for 10 years like Matt could do. Right? Matt's like, I'm the best football program in the state of Texas. And everyone's like, yeah, actually, you are. There's no debate about that. Sark can't say that, right? Baylor can say they're better. A&M can say they're better. So you can't just say I'm the best football program in the state.
UTSA,
don't you want to come?
UTSA.
UTSA.
No. Wow. Tractor trailer. Wow.
Hey, exactly. So I think that's why the SEC brand will help Texas, because now the best recruiting in the country is in SEC country, guys. We all know that, right? It's
right.
Florida and Georgia and Louisiana and Mississippi, all right there together. And that's where Sark's now going to start digging into a little bit more. In addition to, like I said, having your market share of Texas. You're not going to dominate it like Mac did. But, hey, man, you need to own at least 50% of Houston and at least 50% of DFW, because those are in the state of Texas. And you need to, right now, make sure that is one of your top priorities, because they're so talent rich, guys. It is. I mean, those are in terms of most talent rich NFL talent rich areas. Those are probably both top 10 in the country. And no, they're not even states, they're cities.
Right.
Let me ask you, spring game. Yeah, I got people coming from my throat because I basically said they bought Quinn Ewers and he's going to start. I'm too old to mince words, and so we did radio together, and I had a little bit more of a governor back then, but I'm old school now, and
man.
He didn't come here to compete. He came here to start.
I agree with you, brother.
What did you see from him? And is he that big fish that Sark can build around these next 2 or 3 years? Does he have the ability to, like Chris Sims did, to bring other athletes to Texas based on his talent?
Yes, he does. Right, because I will say this: it is an attractive offense to play in if you're a wide receiver or a skill position guy. If you're a running back, Sark always says he thinks the running back is the most underutilized position in the passing game on offense. So he wants his running backs to be utilized in the passing game a lot, even downfield in the passing game. He's talked about how his wide receivers, he calls it his run the daylight philosophy. He wants them catching the ball on the move so they can get yards after the catch, because he's a big game hunter. He wants explosive big plays downfield. And so I think for running backs and wide receivers, it's going to be easy to attract talent there. But what Quinn Ewers does for the offense, and if you look at his rate of development, first of all, I agree with you. I think it's already set that he is going to start the first game of the season, in my opinion. But I know they're carrying out the competition, and I think it's good to carry it's good to carry it out, because I think we all agree Quinn Ewers is going to win the quarterback competition. And if he wins the quarterback competition, then great. Then he wins the locker room in the process. This is part of it, right? Because you just anoint him and give it to him. There's some in the locker room who may be like, oh man, I don't like that. I have to compete for my spot.
People like Hudson Card, for instance.
Well, yeah, exactly. But everybody else is like, no, I can compete for my spot, man. Everybody should compete for their spot. So I like that it's open. Even if it is a close competition, I think he'll call it for Quinn Ewers. History tells us that coaches, let's take Mac Brown's history. It tells us that coaches will more oftentimes than not side with the quarterback with the highest upside in a competition like this, right? Go look at, going back to Chris Sims, Major Applewhite. Chris Sims got the benefit of the doubt from Mac Brown initially, because he's like, nah, I'm gonna go with the quarterback with the higher upside. Whether you agree with that or not, that's a different discussion. He did exactly, but you don't get Roy Williams, you don't get BJ Johnson, and you don't get Sloan Thomas, 3 5-star receivers in the same class if Major Applewhite's your guy.
Wow.
Right? They came to play with Chris Sims. That's just the reality. We all know that. They came to play with Chris Sims. So that's part of what you're talking about with Quinn Ewers. You don't get receivers like, no, I want to go play with that guy because he can make throws that other quarterbacks cannot. So I think if you're looking at, kind of the history of it, and then we go look at Vince Young and Chance Mock. Chance Mock was a decent quarterback. He wasn't some kind of just jabroni out there. He was a good quarterback, and that was a close competition. But Mac Brown sided with the quarterback with the higher upside, because he is going to lift the entire ceiling of your entire team overall. And he's going to attract other guys, right? He's that true alpha of the alpha males. He's that guy. And the only time Mac didn't do it was Colt McCoy. And Colt McCoy and Jevon Sneed was different because Colt McCoy won the job. Even Mac said it in the offseason, mostly because he won the team in the offseason, because Mac said guys were coming to him, telling him, Mac, it's Colt. I'm just telling you, Colt he's the guy. He's taking his leadership to another level. Hudson Card, I think, had that opportunity maybe in the offseason, and maybe he did or didn't. I don't really know if he took, that opportunity and maximized it. But I'm with you, Sid. I think most of the time you're going to bet on the quarterback with the higher upside, even if you got some growing pains to deal with along the way, because it'll attract other players who want to play with that quarterback with the higher upside. And ultimately, man, in this offense, he can make throws. And Hudson Card can make these throws too. But if you look at the rate of development, Quinn Ewers and Hudson Card shouldn't be close. Hudson Card should be leading this competition, and it should be a clear, it should be a clear lead. It should be something that's right now not that close. And from the reports,
you mean Ewers should be leading, right?
I think Hudson Card should be leading.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. Well, no.
He had the better
spring,
right? Better spring game, didn't he?
He's more familiar with the offense. He's played in the offense. He's got better chemistry with the wide receivers because he knows them too. Right. He's got a comfort zone here at home because he's been on the campus and he's been a student already. There's a lot of things that he should already be, right, in my opinion, he should already develop a baseline for. And that's why if you look at the rate of development, we can all predict that Quinn Ewers will surpass Hudson Card because it shouldn't be this close already with Quinn Ewers just actually being introduced to the playbook. He just got the playbook. He just got it not too long ago. Right. So Hudson Card should be out there putting the ball in the money, delivering it, should have great pocket presence and poise. He knows the offensive line. He knows where the holes are there. He has the scouting report on all the players. Quinn Ewers don't have all that yet. So Hudson Card can't have the advantage right now. He's never going to have the advantage.
And I thought he looked better in the spring game. Quinn Ewers had the one touchdown bomb, which was the highlight of the spring. We all agree on that. But Hudson Card took the offense to 4 scores, where that was Ewers' only score. Obviously,
Ewers came back at the end in 2-minute drill through a touchdown.
I don't count the 2 minutes.
To X-Man.
Oh, come on now.
You're at the 30-yard line, 25-yard line.
That's like overtime. Come on, Doug.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, too. I'd like to ask both you guys. We all three think it's probably going to be Quinn Ewers when taking the first step against Louisiana Monroe. But how long or short is the leash? Because we think he went with the higher upside quarterback in Hudson Card last year.
He did.
4-star recruit, bigger rating and billing than Casey Thompson, but it lasted only 2 games. He looked great against Louisiana in the first game and terrible against Arkansas. Boom, you're on the bench. So how long a leash do you think Quinn Ewers would have, both of you?
I'll bite the bullet here.
Go ahead.
People going to hate me for saying this, but
say it.
I got credibility. I have to say it. I can think of 1.4 million reasons why Quinn Ewers ain't getting the leash.
No,
I can think of 1.4 million reasons why Quinn Ewers is not going to get the leash. If they get blown out by Alabama, so what?
Yeah.
That's what's supposed to happen. So that.
I disagree.
That doesn't change my
Hudson Card might get to play, but Quinn Ewers is going to have every opportunity to be the starting quarterback, or he's leaving. But that's what they do now. They leave.
But Card can't care about him leaving. He's got to care about winning. He's
not about Hudson. It's not about Hudson. It's about building the program.
It's about Sark.
Quinn Ewers. I think Quinn Ewers is a better quarterback overall.
Probably is.
I do too.
And I think he's going to win the job. And they'll beat ULM in the opener.
Sure.
But if you're asking me today if they're going to beat Alabama, I'm going to say no because it's Alabama. Even though Alabama lost 7 draft picks, they reload. They don't rebuild. But if he struggles against Alabama, I don't think that Sark's going to do what he did to Hudson Card last season. Because one thing about Hudson Card is he looked like a deer caught in headlights at Arkansas.
He did.
And we don't know if Quinn Ewers. We know about arm talent, but hell, Jeff George had a good arm. So we don't know mentally what's going to happen when those real bullets start flying. But I'm telling you right now, on Wednesday, May 4th, may the 4th be with you, that Quinn Ewers, it's gonna take a lot for Quinn Ewers to lose that job. He's gonna have to serve up 4 or 5 picks to lose his job.
Well, Hudson didn't have 4 or 5 picks against Arkansas.
Hudson looked scared though. He looked scared. He looked scared.
And he obviously didn't see anything he liked, so he pulled the trigger and went with an injured Casey Thompson for the next 10 starts. I don't. Rod B, what do you think? I mean, I'm not saying Sark's on the hot seat, but he can't have another 5-7 season.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's got to show much more improvement in year 2. And I don't know what that is defined as. Everybody's got their own definition of that.
Right.
But I do think that, I think Quinn Ewers will be given a very long leash. The mistake, the calculated, risk, I think that Sark made last year that failed him. He assumed that his offense would run on schedule and that he, basically that his quarterback would have time to operate and execute the offense. And then what he found out was because of that offensive line that, and he found out it is because of the offensive line, but he also had some wide receiver issues too, right? Because the depth at wide receiver when Jordan Whittington went down and the Joshua Moore thing. So X-Man became the only wide receiver. So I get that. But the passing game was severely hindered because of their inability to pass protect. So Hudson Card, the way he operates as a quarterback, right? He's a quarterback that's, progression read quarterback, wants to sit in the pocket. And I think that Sark told those guys. Remember, Sark, he almost mocks dual threat quarterbacks, right? Or using your quarterback in the run game, right? Every time y'all ask about it, he's like, oh, that's not really what we do. We don't do that. You know what I mean? He mocks it. So I think
he was a pocket passer. Yeah.
He's a pocket passer. And I think those guys have been told, hey, listen, guys, you keep the play alive with your feet, but you're going to make the play with your arm. All right. I'd rather y'all do that. And I think Hudson Card has been really listening to coach. And I think last year he did it to his detriment. Casey Thompson got in, and Casey Thompson, who knew this offensive line really well and knew this team really well, said to himself, oh, and a veteran player, oh, that's not going to work, coach.
I want to scramble.
Sorry. Well, he didn't tell coach that, but he thought to himself, I'm not sitting in that pocket.
I'm gonna run for 8 yards when
I'm getting out of this. As soon as that rush comes, I'm leaving. And you would see when the rush would come, Hudson Card would almost wait until he would get to scramble. He would wait too late. Yeah. And I think that was him almost being, and Shanahan talks about this all the time, be coachable, but don't be a robot.
Yeah.
He said, I'm not perfect. I'll call a play, but hell, I'm not on the field. I don't see what's going on. If you go make the play, don't be a robot. Go be a football player. And I think at times Hudson Card was a robot last year. And he had that same look on his face that Sark had on the sideline. So I think they both had that look. And I think that's why Casey Thompson saved Sark, because Casey Thompson said, Sark, you're not going to be able to run the offense you ran at Alabama. You can't do that. It's not going to operate that effectively and efficiently. You don't have those athletes. We have too many deficiencies here. And Casey Thompson knew, just don't make the play that can be made. And Hudson Card didn't do that. Hudson Card tried to make the play that coach told him to make. Can't do that. Don't be a robot. Be a football player. I think now he's learned.
You saw that in Arkansas. I was watching on TV. Duck was at the game, and they give up like 2 straight sacks, and they pan into Sark, and he goes, oh, my God, we're terrible.
You just found that out.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, I knew your line was terrible before you went to Arkansas. Why did you know?
Exactly.
You know?
That's my point. It took him going to Arkansas. I was like, did you not watch the film from last season? Any podcast that's Longhorn football related could have told Sark, hey, you cannot trust your O-line. Don't trust your O-line. And he trusted the O-line.
Yeah,
badly.
He's not going to go 5-7 again. I'm going to put that out there, because if he does go 5-7, he's going to be in real trouble, or worse yet, he might get another extension. I mean,
It can happen.
That could happen.
Give
him some more money, CDC.
Remember, he's got to
5-7 again.
He's got to go to Kansas.
Oh, his phone is ringing. Oh my God! Everybody's after Sark now.
Wow,
let's get the monkey bite up to $2 million a year. Let's do that. I'm a cynical SO, you know what? But I just, those kind of things where I'm from, man. When you went 5-7, you didn't get rewarded for that. And one more thing, I was going to ask you. You mentioned X-Man, and I know we're running a little short on time. You mentioned X-Man. The beginning of the summer, the beginning of the spring, I asked Xavier Worthy. I go at a presser. I go, X, did your phone ring in the off season? Did you anyone call asking you to want to transfer, because all this NIL money's out there? I get those calls. And so I left it at that. And of course I wrote it and I got blasted. Yeah, what else is new?
Yeah.
But now there are reports out there that there were 2 6-figure offers from Power 5 teams and that Texas had to match it.
Yeah.
So why didn't X? I mean, if that's true, why didn't X just say, "Yeah, man, the phone was ringing"? Is he just being a good soldier? And
Yeah, that's a good.
the new
I think.
reality, great players are being poached.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Maybe he thought it was, like inappropriate, like, right, to talk about that kind of stuff. Because now,
And that's
this is all
business.
new. Yeah, exactly. This is all new to us. We don't really know. I mean, a lot of this is speculation and rumor and hearsay and that kind of thing. So maybe he was just scared to bring it up, and maybe John Bianca and them told him, "Hey, don't address stuff like that." But I'm with you. It's a new era, man. It is. It's unbelievable. Free market has truly hit amateurism, and I think it's going.
How much money would you have made, Robbie? You're one of the most charismatic, great interviews, good looking, funny,
I
great on
appreciate
the
that,
mic.
man.
In '02, how much money are you making for a juggernaut that was a Longhorns, that was a monster that was on its way to great things?
That's a great. I keep I keep thinking about these questions, right? Like, what would I have done in this time, right? In this time, do I go to
Those old
Texas?
linemen are getting 50 grand a
Get
piece.
50 grand.
What are you and Quinn Jammer
But
gonna get?
I would say, yeah, our DBU unit would have had its own endorsement. I mean, we probably would have had an Austin Bergstrom no-fly zone endorsement of some
Nice,
kind. You know what I mean? Because
nice.
we just had too many great players between Quentin Jammer, myself, Nathan Basher, Ahmad Brooks, and Huff Daddy was in there. We just had great players, man. So that probably would have been an easy one. All right, right there, no-fly
Easy
zone. But
money.
yeah, I got to say though, one thing that does, it does kind of concerns me, but just I think about it a lot is, yeah, the motivation, for the young men. I mean, I remember being, like not starving, but I remember being hungry,
Hungry.
literally. I remember being hungry and taking food from the dining hall and putting it in my backpack in Tupperware. And that was the food I was going to eat later on because I didn't have bread to go get food like that. That was part of the journey. That was part of the hustle, the grind. And I would sit up late nights thinking, stomach growling, it's all for the league. This is all I gotta, you know what I mean? I gotta commit myself to it. This is part of it. You know what I mean? You don't get to accomplish your goals in a comfortable setting. You got to get outside your comfort zone. You got to suffer for them. You got to commit to them. And I kind of accepted that mindset and embraced that mindset. Embraced the suck. It was gonna suck. All right, it's gonna suck for a while, but wait till I make it to that league. They're gonna call my name, and then I'm gonna think about these days, and I'm gonna remember the character. All right, that was able to develop over that time because of that. Because I had those stories, and so I worry about the young men if they. I'm not sure. I want them to get their money. I want them to get their money and out. But I had a lot of growth during that time, man. A lot of growth. And hopefully that growth is different. Hopefully there's financial literacy and learn about paying your taxes early on and learn about investment and brand marketing. So hopefully it's a different type of growth. But I remember that, man. And, and these young men, they'll have to wrestle with that and also wrestle with, how do you keep the competitive sickness, right? When you got, I don't know, $100,000 in the bank. So you ain't hungry no more. It ain't to feed mom and family no more because you've been sending them money, but it's the shortbread, fast money, go fast, man. You know that.
Oh yeah.
So I hope they think about the long money, get the degree, invest it, and think about the league, man. That's what you came here for.
That's what Morrow said.
Yep. No, I'm with you, man. Trust me. Me and Morrow need to go have a drink.
Yeah. I like that kid. I'm sorry. I like
You're
that.
buying, right? Coaches.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I'm buying, no doubt.
Don't you think coaches hate this, Rodby? This NIL? It's like they've lost control. That and the portal. Some guys like Lincoln Riley are going to rebuild USC, probably back into a monster program. But don't you think most of the coaches kind of hate the uncertainty, the roster churn? I got to keep all my players happy. I got to keep recruiting them while they're in my program. Do you think they hate it, Rod?
Yeah, they do. I know they do, but it's the new reality. You have to. I think they have to change up their approach and their coaching tactics now with the young people because they do have more power, more opportunity, more freedom, and coaches aren't accustomed to that. So I think some coaches will thrive in it because some coaches will be able to adapt and adjust very easily, and some coaches are just it's going to eventually overwhelm them. The amount of player freedom and the roster turnover. My concern would be, like I said, building a culture is probably my biggest concern. And the attrition rates on either side. I think every program now is going to have high attrition rates. It used to be something that would stand out, but now I think everybody's going to have high attrition rates just because players have the ability to leave and play somewhere else without suffering the penalty of a one-time having to sit out 1 year.
Exactly.
Well, Rob, man, it's always a pleasure. We could talk all day, but we'll
Yes,
get
sir.
you back sometime before the season. Check them out on 104.9 The Horn. Ball Don't Lie with Mike Hardage. Weekdays 3 to 7.
You're
Rob,
the
thank
best.
you, brother. We appreciate it.